What's up, Nightwalkers? Today, I'll be going over the OpsCore Modular Bungee Shroud. This is the newest night vision shroud from OpsCore, and I'm just going to call it the MBS in the video, which is actually what it goes by. MBS just stands for Modular Bungee Shroud. Like the packaging states, it fits ballistic and non-ballistic helmets. This particular helmet I have it on, this is the first generation OpsCore carbon helmet. It's a carbon fiber, non-ballistic bump helmet. And something important to point out for those of you that aren't familiar with OpsCore helmets is that the standard OpsCore fast bump helmet, it's a plastic or polymer non-ballistic, bump helmet, and it has a molded in shroud, and so you can't replace the shroud on it. So this really is only going to apply to the carbon helmets or the ballistic helmets, that don't have the MBS. It's important to point out that all the new OpsCore fast helmets, like the Fast SF ballistic helmet and then the Fast SF carbon composite helmet, they come standard with the MBS shroud on them already. However, you could add this thing onto any helmet that uses the 3-hole shroud like this one, whether it's OpsCore, Wilcox, non-brand, whatever. If it's one of these type of shrouds, you can put the MBS on it. So I'm sure some of you are asking, if your existing shroud is working just fine, why would you want to replace it with the MBS? And so for me in particular, it was to get this bungee system here with these mini carabiners attached to it, centrally located here in the middle of the helmet versus using the bungees off to the side here. The standard bungees that came on the OpsCore helmets previously, and on a lot of helmets, you just basically have these open hooks on them. And these open hooks are nice for quickly, attaching and detaching the bungees off of your device. However, because they're open, it's pretty easy for the device to slip off of it. So if you were to detach your mount off of your shroud, like with the breakaway feature, if it flips around, it's going to fall right off of this thing potentially, which would be a bad day. With this type of a system, you definitely want to have some type of lanyard attached to it. And so why would your device fall off your helmet is something some people might want to know. And so here's something to point out. So here's a G24. G24 mounts have a breakaway feature on them. This is breakaway disengaged. This is breakaway engaged. And the way you do it is you just gotta push this thing down in here. It's pretty stiff sometimes. So there we go. And so here's how the breakaway feature works is, get this thing locked in here. So let's say you got your device attached to your helmet, you get snagged on something. Rather than your neck getting tweaked because this thing can't move, this will just pop right off of the shroud. And so that's a safety backup, so that if you did get snagged, you're not going to jack your neck all up. You're going to have some safety because it's going to come off. And so because of that, you obviously don't want to lose it off your helmet. And so by using something that has the carabiners on it with split rings, it's going to keep that positive retention on your helmet. And with the MBS packaging, I'll show this to you real quick. So you can get it in different colors. These are all the different colors of the shrouds that match the helmets and whatnot. And then they give you a variety of screws. Each one of these is for a different type of helmet, and that's based on the thickness of the shell. The carbon helmets are thinner, and as you can kind of see as it goes up, thicker shells need thicker screws. And then they also give you split rings that come in it, which you'll need to attach it. And then they give you new nuts here, and these are basically just the nuts that go in here that the screws go into, so that way you can clamp it onto your helmet. Having the bungees in the center right here, it's a much better location than coming off to the sides. I mean, this hasn't been a problem traditionally, because it's pretty close to the helmet. However, when you stow it, they're kind of coming across like this way, coming up. I like them in the middle. Plus, it just makes sense. All these modern devices like this 1531 TNVC are the same way. Your attachment points are right here in the center of the bridge. So as you can see, it just lines up perfectly. And so here's where you put the mini carabiner or the split rings. You just put them through the holes, and then you got your mini carabiner clamps over that, keeps it positively retained. And so for me personally, I run bungees every time I'm using goggles. I just prefer it. Another reason why, I'll just kind of show you real quick, I've got a few different mounts. So I've got, these are all G24s. So I've got oldest, next oldest, newest. Just real quick, I'll just talk about it. So as you can see, the newest one, this looks a little bit different because the new ones, Wilcox updated all the G24s, and so now they all have a longer travel arm on them. This is the same distance on the G22. So now instead of having to buy a G22 that doesn't have the breakaway, you just buy a G24 and you get the same travel distance. The reason you may want this is if you're running, let's say a gas mask or something, you may need to push your device further out. Certain devices sit closer to the helmet than others to where you need the longer travel distance. In particular, like a GPMVG, it sits pretty close to the helmet, so you'll need to run it further out. And the new G24 is going to take care of that problem for you. So anyways, going back to what I was talking about. So oldest mount, next oldest, newest. And so these mounts, they're not going to be perfect all the time. So sometimes you have tolerance issues with them. So for example, here's my oldest mount. It has a little bit of play down at the bottom, stowed. It's got more play up there. I don't really care about play up there. For me, it's all about how it is at the bottom. My next oldest one, pretty good. Very little play at the bottom. Up top, very little play as well. Doesn't bother me at all. My newest one, and I've actually put this thing through some torture, so I think I loosened it up more, but it has a lot more play down here and up here. And it's actually more pronounced, once you have your device on. So for example, you got more leverage now, so you could see how much play that is. And having the bungees on it, it's going to pull it tighter, so it's going to eliminate this from happening, which is a huge advantage, because if you're running around and stuff, last thing you want are your goggles bouncing around. That'll affect the performance of the device because your eyes aren't going to be looking through it perfectly every time when it does that. So the MBS consists of two parts. You've got this plastic part, which the 3 holes all attached to, and then the center section here, this insert's actually metal, and it can be replaced here with these 2 screws. So you just take these screws out and you can replace it. So if you were to damage this for some reason, you can just swap it back out with the new part, as well as you can get an adapter insert. And so this particular one is for a GSGM. And so you just take these 2 screws out, you put this adapter in there, and then you can take your GSGM that has this rail interface, which goes into this thing and then attaches here inside the shroud. And I'll kind of show you what that looks like real quick. Ta-da! All right, the GSGM's all mounted up and ready for your ball detent device. When it's time to go back to a traditional type goggle system, all you got to do is slide it off of the rail, just like that. Take those 2 screws back out, put your original insert back in, and now you can put a G24 back into it. Installing the MBS is super easy, so I'm not going to run you through the whole process, but I'll kind of show you how it goes. So you just flip the helmet upside down. Something to note, these aren't the stock pads. These are the 0G Tactical 4D pads. These things are memory foam. I highly recommend them. You can get these on TNVC's website. But anyways, the process is the same. You take the brow pad off, reach in here. You're basically going to pull this, and you just have to kind of pull this in this direction towards the center of the helmet to release these things. Once you get in here, you'll see how that goes. And the reason you do that is it gives you better access here to the inside. So this second hole right here, this is where the screw is. And so there's 2 right here. These are for these 2 screws. And then the top screw is accessible right here. It's this one right there. So all you do is you get a small Phillips head, get in there, loosen those up. And then that's what's going to allow you to basically take the shroud off of the helmet. You put the new one in, same thing. You just put the screws back through the same holes. Pick the appropriate screws for your type of helmet that come in the package. Attach them to these nuts here that go in the shroud, and then you're good to go. When you're not using the bungees, all you do is take that top part of the carabiner and just clip it in that spot right there on the shroud. Keeps them out of the way, and it's really easy to get to when it's time to get to your bungees again. All right, so here's the bungees hooked up to the 1531 using the split rings. And as you can see, it keeps everything nice and tidy with the bungees out of the way. And then same thing, even stowed up on the helmet, it's nice and tidy. You have a spot right here where you can take the hooks and attach them to the shroud, just like you did on the skeleton shroud. However, if you want to get rid of these bungees, all you got to do is loosen up the screw. There is a nut on this side, so don't lose it. But yeah, just take this thing out of here so that the rail can lift up off the helmet, and then you just take the bungee out of there. To wrap up this video, if you're looking for a new 3-hole shroud, I highly recommend the MBS. It's a great way to dress up an old OpsCore helmet, or really any old helmet, to look new, because the MBS is the newest shroud that's coming on all the OpsCore helmets. Plus this bungee system works great with these mini carabiners, and then also the metal replaceable insert, but especially these mini carabiners, you know, because on some 3-hole shrouds like the Wilcoxes, if you want to have a lanyard capability, you know, that's additional cost that you have to add on to it. And then you have an additional lanyard that's going to be mounted up here that you still have to attach, whereas this is giving you 2-for-1 bungees plus a lanyard, which I just think it's a killer feature on this shroud. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments section, and thanks for watching.